As CSGO reaches higher levels of relevance, legendary throws go down in greater infamy. I'm sure I'm not the only NACS fan that vividly remembers the Team Liquid choke at the MLG Major. Even now, over a year later, Team Liquid players jokingly berate themselves for the match. The point is, players and fans alike recognize the prevalence of chokes and throws in the professional scene. Many chalk it up to the raw emotion hampering the choker and lifting their opponent. But are these really chokes? To find out, I went to compare two teams' overall win rate with their win rate at match point. This meant to get a somewhat sufficient sample, recording and analyzing nearly 2,000 rounds of Counter-Strike over the course of 72 days. As always, the data I collected is available in an Excel spreadsheet in the description. Specifically, I recorded data from Cloud9 performances on Train, Cobblestone, and Inferno, as well as SK performances on Overpass, Mirage, and Inferno. I was certain to separate win rates for terrorists and counter-terrorist sides, as maps may favor one side or the other. Let's start with Cloud9's Train. Their overall T-side win rate was an impressive 48%. Over the same period, whenever Cloud9 was at match point, their T-side win rate increased to 83%. When Cloud9's opponents were sitting on match point, Cloud9's T-side win rate increased to 70%. Cloud9's overall CT side win rate lays at 58%, and when the team was on match point, their win rate increased by 12 points. When their opponents were on match point, however, their win rate decreased by 16 points. So, moving on to Cloud9's Cobblestone, perhaps a more balanced map, their win rate was 54% on the T side. Whenever Cloud9 was at match point, their T side win rate decreased slightly, to 50%. And when their opponent was on match point, Cloud9's win rate decreased significantly to 25%. Cloud9's CT side win rate on the map was 50%. Over this period, when Cloud9 was on match point, they won the next round 100% of the time. Even when their opponents had match point, Cloud9 won 67% of the following rounds. So, now that we've been through a couple of these, let's go through the remaining sections a bit more quickly. On Inferno, Cloud9's T-side win rate increased by 15% when against match point, but decreased by 19% when they had match point themselves. Their CT side win rate was exactly the same when against match point, but decreased by 25% when they had match point themselves. So, from NA's best, let's move on to the world's best. On Overpass, SK's T-side win rate increased by 24% when against match point, and increased by 14% when SK had match point. Their CT side win rate increased by 10% when against match point, but interestingly, the squad never had match point themselves while on the CT side. Moving on to their Mirage performance, SK's T-side win rate increased by 21% when against match point, and increased to 100% when on match point themselves. On the CT side, their win rate increased by 2% when against match point, and decreased significantly by 29% when on match point. Last but not least, we have Sks Inferno Performance. When the team was against match point, their T-side win rate decreased by 27%, but increased by 33% when they were on match point. SK's CT side win rate was an impressive 54%, but when they were on match point, they won 100% of the next rounds, and when their opponents were on match point, they won none of the next rounds. All these percentages can definitely be confusing, so here's a summary. What I want you to get from this is that although I will point out general patterns in the next section, there is variance between different maps and different teams. So for those general patterns, let's take a weighted average of the two teams' normal win rates, considering the frequency they play these maps. Over the course of the last couple months, interestingly, both SK and Cloud9 have increased their win rate when they were on round 15, and increased their win rate when their opponent was on round 15. This points to the resiliency of top teams in the world. At the time of my posting this, Cloud9 rests at the number 7 spot, while SK comfortably lays on the throne at number 1. It does appear that exceptional losses at the end of a match are rare occurrences, at least among these top teams. Since for every winner there must be a loser, however, I'm interested in seeing whether or not the lower ranked teams are less able to adapt to the increased pressure at the end of a match. Maybe that will be in a follow-up video. But that's it for now. As always, thank you for watching. If you have any feedback or topic suggestions, I encourage you to leave those in a comment.